I'm gonna
Unless
say
it's
it.
like,
I'm just gonna say it.
go ahead.
I
What is
don't
it?
get the iPad as a computer thing. I
Wait,
don't.
what?
I
Why?
I'm not into it because it still feels like a compromise. It just feels like a compromise. Even if they put Mac OS on the iPad, I have a MacBook. Like it just it doesn't do it for me, and I never see a world. I will probably eat these words in a couple of years, and
Yeah,
there's going to
you're
be an
gonna eat
Apple
it.
engineer
You're gonna eat
laughing.
so hard.
But I do not see a world where I would prefer to use the iPad over a MacBook.
I
I
mean, I
don't.
personally like. I use my iPad Air for everything. That I usually like. I'll write the show that way. All my notes for Genius Bar when we record, I have them there. Media consumption is there. The only thing that I don't use it for is like, when I'm editing the show or doing something in Photoshop. But Adobe has openly said that they are working on like a full version of Photoshop for the iPad, in which case, see you later, computer. It's just like, to me, that's the perfect portable device that is just like a hybrid of all the things that I need and want. And with the Magic Keyboard, that totally transformed like my
Mhm.
use case for the iPad. And I think I mean, maybe it doesn't work for you or like, I guess people like us, but I would say for 95% of people, the iPads are more than enough, especially with the Magic Keyboard, even without that. But I feel like there's no argument that could possibly go against the whole, is the iPad a computer replacement? Because for 95% of people, I feel it absolutely is.
You're right. You're
I
right.
know.
You're right. Because you're right. I'm coming from the perspective if it's not enough for me, but I am not Apple's customer base, and you are. I mean, we are part of the customer base, but like
But
it is.
it's even more confusing now because
Yeah.
95% of people don't need 16 gigs of RAM in their iPad. Why
Yeah,
did they do that? Unless do you think they're setting something up for like some sort of, I mean, obviously they know their plans further along than we do.
Yes.
And 16 gigs feels weird this year because it seems like overkill, unless we got pro apps this year. But is there something that they're working on that we don't know about, that there's going to be some crazy transition in the next few years where there is no more Macs?
It would have to be, but did you notice in every single interview they say we're not combining the iPad and the Mac? Every single interview. They've done 3 separate interviews now. One with TechCrunch, I think one with a YouTuber, and then one with another outlet. And they say the same thing. Like they say this, they're asked the same questions.
But then they put
M1 and
they
iPad.
put the M1 in there.
M1 and MacBook. Which again, I personally
I feel like they're
don't.
lying.
I don't get it. And I think that there's probably somebody that works at Apple that is just like laughing, and they're just going to be like, wait, or the good kid's watching this and he's going to be like, oh my God, this guy has no idea like what's about to happen. But I've been thinking about this as far as the M1. There are now 5 Apple products that have the same exact processor inside.
Yeah. But think about how ballsy that is.
Updates. That's how confident they are. And listen, I am like the #1 M1 fan. I am so bullish on Apple Silicon. I am, that's why I'm getting the iMac. Like, this is not an Apple Silicon hate, but I find it weird with the different price structures.
Yeah.
That they all have the same chip.
But think about how ballsy that is, though. Like, to have it in the iPad and a Mac, and like, there's like, I mean, we're starting to get to that point where if you can do most of your things on an iPad, you're like, why would you buy a Mac?
A Mac. This is what's confusing me.
Well, here's what I think is going to happen, Sam.
Okay, lay it on me.
Let me see if I can make sense of this. I think, and I'm pretty sure about this. This is just a prediction, by the way. This is not a leak. This is not information that I have. This is just what feels right in my bones, in my balls. I think that we're just moving away from Intel currently, and so we're getting the new designs with the M1 chips and all the things. But I think there's going to be 2 separate lines. I think there's going to be like the M1X or M2X, M3X, and the X chips are going to be in the more pro-level devices. And then like the base level iMac and like MacBook Air will get M1, M2, M3, and the Pros will have M2X, M3X, have something more powerful, because I can't see a world where every product category across the board has the same processor. I don't think it.
That sounds right to me. But part of me is just like, when are we going to put M1 in the iPhone?
Oh, I mean, would they, do you think? You think they would do that? Are we heading there that way?
I mean, they got rid of it on the iPad Pro. Like,
but did they do it because that's the Pro, the iPad Pro?
I don't know. It just feels weird that they all have the same chip. It's weird to think that it's just.
And for Dub last year, when they started making that transition or announcing that transition, didn't they ship a Mac Mini to developers with like an A chip in it?
Yeah, it was like an A12X or something.
So, I mean, theoretically, they could just swap them back and forth. They could do whatever the fuck they want.
And we've heard that like the M1 is basically just the A14X. That like it's basically the same thing. And I think there's something about the homogeneousness. Is that
what? Who is that? Who is this person?
Everything like becoming.
It's supposed to be me. I don't know what that was.
That was funny. I'm worried about the homogeneity of.
What are you saying? What is that word?
I'm worried about everything becoming the same because it's fueled by the same thing. And I'm worried that Apple's fear about everything becoming the same and our distinct product lines are different could be muddied by them putting the same processor in everything.
I agree, but I'm just trusting.
No, I know that they like got it. It just is weird, I'm here for it. I think the M1 iPad Pro is freaking phenomenal. Like, I can't wait to get mine.
But it's weird. It's a weird move if there's no software advancements that allow us to use that.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, what's the point? Like, why did we switch from A series to M series?
Exactly. If you have the iPad Pro and that product category unlocks a suite of software experiences that you don't get on the iPad Air or like your iPhone, then it makes sense. But to just put an M1 in the iPad Pro, 16 gigs of RAM, just because you can, just because fuck it, that sounds like a Samsung thing where they're like, Samsung would always make all these weird like decisions and moves to do stuff just because they could. Like the original, what was it? The Galaxy Curve. It wasn't like, it was just the Edge. I think it was called the Edge, like the S7 Edge or something, where just one side of the phone had a curved display. Okay. Like you could buy the regular phone and then you could buy one just because they could curve the glass. And you're like, okay, cool. You could do that. That's fantastic. Technology is amazing. Okay, but why?
Yeah.
And I feel like we're getting to, unless their vision is like of something more substantial in software, cool. You can do that with hardware, but why? And Apple doesn't feel like a but why company. If I feel like everything should have a reason and a purpose, and if it doesn't, I'm going to be very confused. So I hope Dub gives us some insight in like, even if we don't get Pro apps this year, fine. But I hope we get some sort of insight in like what their vision is for this machine moving forward, because I don't think we got a good look at that during the event.
It was just that cool ad with Tim Cook like breaking in and
that
putting
was cool.
the M1 and the iPad Pro. It was a great hype for
I love
it,
that.
But I just don't see why. And I think it goes down to like, I like a lot of the products individually, and I'm just like, well, if they all have the same amount of power,
right?
Why do they run different operating systems? Why do they look different? Why do they... Like, I get it, because there's applications for it. I just, like you said, we just need more information. And I'm sure I'm going to be laughing at myself in a couple months and be like, dude, was I really like thinking about this? But, it's just like they haven't explained it. Like, they did the fun stuff with M1, Mac processor, and iPad. This thing's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But you haven't announced anything that would be better because of it at all.
Penis crossed. Penis crossed.